Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Raelin Saindon. I'm your host for Live Out Loud, and I want to welcome a special guest of mine. She is, oh man, she is a dear, sweet soul sister of mine. Her name is Rue Brodus, everyone. She is a poet, a photographer. She has a lived experience with school bus driving and lots of conversation, I'm sure, around everything that you heard on that school bus with those kids. She's also a grandparent. She is a mother as well, and she's a caretaker for her adult son who lives with autism. I want to welcome you today, Miss LaRue. Thank you for joining us on Live Out Loud.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So you and I, when we first met, we really connected deeply. And I've really enjoyed our conversations and how we have gotten to know each other and kind of intertwined our relationship and deepened it together. We want to talk today, you guys, about some conversations that we've had and that we're continuing to have and that we're hoping to develop further around racism. A couple of topics that you brought up, Miss LaRue. You said we want to talk about why we feel the way that we do from our perspectives, and then also why we collectively as human beings don't want to discuss this topic, right?
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So share with us a little bit about yourself first, and let's, get started into this.
Well, in the world, I think that I've had a pretty balanced life, in that I did not experience a lot of racism, none that I couldn't manage, none that traumatized me, and things of that nature. I was a kid in the 60s, so I grew up watching what civil rights was about, but not really being affected by it. As an adult in the workforce in corporate America, again, it was a learning experience. The sprinkles of racism, it limited me, but not to the extent that it kept me from becoming the CEO, because it really would not have mattered the color of my skin. I wasn't going to ever be the CEO in that corporate environment, Yeah. So I guess I've had the liberty to learn a lot without being hurt by it, by racism. Yeah.
Nice. So how can you share a little bit about maybe some of your experiences, if you would, or I'm assuming you're saying comparatively to your brothers and sisters that that have faced
Definitely
harder hardship, right?
Absolutely. Comparatively, I grew up in Queens County in New York, in the suburbs of, Mayberry, so to speak. Racism, or the divide, if you will, was never a subject in my home. However, my grandparents lived in Mississippi, in rural Mississippi, so I had that experience. And the first time I saw racism, I don't remember the age, but I remember seeing in the distance my grandmother's church being burned down.
Wow.
Yeah. And we stood on the porch and we could see the flames from the distance, but I don't remember a conversation. You know, I'm sure there was. Maybe I was too young to understand, you know, the conversation. Um, it was different. You know, that's just a memory. You know, so going forward in my life, you know, I had to put that image together with what it meant at a time when I could understand or read about what that was about. So that was my first experience, I would say, with racism. And then my next experience was around 18 when I moved from my mom's house, and I was looking for an apartment. And you know, I'm 18. You know, I'm looking for a place that I like and that I could afford. You know, and I learned that every place that I wanted was not open to me.
Having you there, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
was anything said?
no, not directly, never directly. And that's the other thing that I learned about racism, that Northerners do not tell you things directly.
Right.
Okay? Southerners will.
Right.
And so I gained a respect really for that, because I was never confused, you know. And it again was different for me because I would think, I know for a fact that Black people who grew up in the South had, and may still have to some respect, a different type of behavior, you know. And I didn't come from that place. You know, I was more arrogant, to put it bluntly, but I was still young. So I'm arrogant in my demeanor, you know.
You mean confident? Yeah.
Yeah. But again, like I said, I could always respect the Southern people because I knew what they was thinking and feeling.
Right.
And I didn't have to guess about it. Northerners would smile at you and say one thing, but you could feel the truth.
Right.
You know, and that made it more difficult to navigate in the Northern world.
So when you were looking for a place to live and you're young, what were some of the comments or, you know, that you kind of ran into and you were like, something else is going on here?
I think what was most prominent was that, well, you can't afford to live here.
Interesting.
You know, you can't afford to live here, you know. And so I learned things that I needed to do to make living here affordable. You know, again, I'm 18. How much work experience do I really have? How, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to embellish to live in a place that I desired to live.
Interesting.
You know? So yeah.
So then those would be, I mean, in our lexicon, you know, those would be those microaggressions, right? Those subtle kind of comments that, like you said, don't come right out and say, you're not welcome here, but they question your affordability.
Yes.
Confidence, and you probably, it's out of your reach or whatever, right? The assumptions that are made.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I remember here in Virginia, the first corporate job I had here in Virginia, I ran into a lady, I forget her name, but she didn't like me, you know, and I knew that from her spirit, you know. And subsequently, it was a lot that transpired between us. Again, because, you know, she couldn't come out and call me any names or tell me what she was really feeling, you know, but she manipulated things to try to get rid of me.
Right.
And she couldn't. Unfortunately, during that time that I had that job, my son had gotten ill and he wound up in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had these work ethics that really, I would just give my all in all, you know. And so this particular morning, I had called into work and let the office know that I would be coming in late. My son was in the hospital and I wanted to stop by the hospital, speak to his doctor before coming into the office. Fast forward, by the time I got to the office, the lady called me in her office. She had another person sitting in there, and you know, having 20 years in New York, I kind of knew what that was about. And she fired me. She fired me.
What?
Yeah, she did. She fired me. And
Based on what?
Her position was I wasn't doing the job. I wasn't able to do the job that I was in position to do. And I remember that being her forefront reason. And she had me, I was in a situation, you know, my son was in a hospital.
Right.
And that job afforded his insurance. That was his health insurance, you know.
Right.
And so I said to the woman, I said, well, listen, give me any job. I'll do any job, you know. So I literally humbled myself, you know. I did. I went there because I needed that job for my son.
Right.
She said no. Okay, she said no. And I was escorted out of the building as if I stole something, you know.
Well, I would say that's a pretty big overt, you know,
oh yeah,
situation. Absolutely.
oh yeah, that was cutting. That was cutting. And
and how long had you been there?
I hadn't been there long. No, I hadn't put in a year. And I actually get the name of the company. I remember we dealt with photocopier contracts. You know, this may have been, let me see, I came here in 94. So maybe 96, around 96. Yeah, so it wasn't long. And what I know, what I've experienced so far in my life is that, you know, when they say the cliche, God doesn't like ugly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I believe that wholeheartedly, you know. It wasn't a kind thing that she did.
No, not at all.
You know? And I learned through the pipeline, eventually this woman lost her job. Having nothing to do with me.
Yeah, right?
You know, but she, you know, so I guess the best lesson is that we are all subject to the same human conditions, you know, and when you lose sight of that, okay, you stand to lose more than your hate or your dislike or your whatevers, you know. So,
you know, I've experienced you know, jobs where I just didn't get along with my supervisors or whatever. But I'll say it's never been because of the color of my skin, ever. It's never been because of my appearance. It's always been, you know, maybe a personality clash or they just didn't like the fact that I'm pretty forthright and I, you know, I'm pretty honest and transparent about stuff, but I also expect that from other people too. So, but I have never, in my experience, if I've been you know, if I've been somewhere trying to purchase something or qualify for a loan, or like you, look for, you know, a place to live or something, have never been told that I couldn't afford it as code for, we don't want you here, you know?
Right, right.
It's been literally because maybe my income didn't quite meet the income threshold, you know?
Right,
Um, and or I never took it as anything but face value. So I don't know what it's like to live with, like you've said, where you recognize that, you know, growing up in New York in the northern states and versus going down, you know, and visiting your relatives in the southern states, and the disparity between the treatment of the two, and the way, you know, race is dealt with
mm-hmm.
in those locales. I've never had to give, you know, a second thought to, oh, is this code for something that somebody's trying to tell me, you know?
Right.
And having to read between those kinds of lines where it regards the color of my skin. And
Right, right. And I think in that lies the major problem,
yeah,
you know, between the 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 white race and
yeah,
the Black race. You know, we definitely live two polar opposite experiences on Earth,
yes,
you know, and when my white counterpart doesn't have a clue what that feels like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
then, you know, in some circles you hear, why don't they just get over it? Well, why don't we just get over what? It's a constant. We cannot
right.
get over a constant,
No.
you know?
I mean, you live inside of your body 24/7. That is your human experience as in your Black experience. And it's my human experience and my white experience. And neither of us can shed the other or get over it, like you said, because it's who and what we are in this human experience, right?
Right, it is. And so, you know, in my thoughts and all of this, um, it's like we really need to take pause and just sit with it. You know, just sit with it. You know, just like you said, you know, you never in any of your situations, if you was denied a thing,
Right.
your skin color had nothing to do with it.
Nothing.
You know,
Right.
And for us, it can be the same reasons and add skin color to it.
Right. Right.
or
Or
yeah,
or
or
it,
it's just straight skin color and we qualify for everything else.
yes.
You know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I would wager, sadly though, but I would wager that it's probably more so the latter, more so, you know, those are all codes for it's really about your skin color.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things that I thought about in the past couple of days, coupled with my grandson who's 12.
Yeah.
And I'll get to him in a second. But I was thinking about when we're children,
Mm-hmm.
okay? When I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
I was taught by my parents, okay? So anything that my parents told me, I would believe. I mean, why wouldn't I?
Right.
You know, we learn to love or hate or this or that
Right.
because that's our first teachers,
Right.
okay? So aside from what my parents taught me, then my teacher, okay, was the next person to imprint
Mm-hmm.
what my belief values were.
Right.
Religion, of course, okay, and we come into the world and we attach ourselves to the religion of our parents.
Yes.
Yeah? And then through that basis, we then start to learn, um, you know, or question, you know, well, you know, why? And so I realized that it's very important what we tell our children, because children do not come into this world hating.
No.
You know, um, yeah, they absolutely will look outside themselves and realize that, well, you don't look like me.
Right.
You know, even the anatomy of man, woman, once a child recognizes, why don't you have that body part? You know, it all becomes curiosity, but it has nothing to do with hate.
No.
Right? So
Right.
we do understand hate is taught.
Yes.
And you know, that's scary. So going forward as an adult, as we are today in 2020, okay, a lot of us have beliefs, values that we were taught, having nothing to do with facts.
Right.
Nothing. You know, it's true because my mama said so.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And did you ever pause to look under or peel back that cover and find out, why did mama tell you that? Okay. We know why mama told you that, because her mama told her, and so on and so forth, until somewhere back there,
Yes.
there is a truth that got distorted.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And so with that said, each of us, you know, no matter who we are responsible for what we write on the minds of the child going forward.
I love that. We are responsible for what we write upon the minds of a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Writing that down. Yes. Yeah. 100%.
You know. So, you know, when I think about my grandson who's 12, and just recently, he said to me, he said, I'm trying to think, he had asked me a question regarding the protests. He had asked me a question about the protests.
Yeah.
I don't particularly remember what that question was right now, but what he said to me was, he said, you know, if anything ever happened to me, I don't want people to protest. Okay, I don't want no one to get hurt, so I don't matter. Just throw me in a hole, because I don't want anyone to get hurt. And yeah, my mind and my eyes lit up.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, that's exactly. I said, wow. You know, and
A
in that
12-year-old mind.
Yeah, and in that moment,
unreal.
I'm responsible for my response.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Wow. I hugged him.
Yeah.
I told him, I told him that, you know, you are important.
Yes.
To the world, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, you, with a heart like that, you're going to be really big one day.
Yeah.
You know, and I hugged him. But, you know, I walked away with that, wow, you know.
Have you had to have any of these really big conversations with him and or with your kids as they were growing up, in terms of how to respond, how to navigate, you know, certain situations? And
Okay, the first time my 5-year-old son came home from preschool, and he had asked me, was he Black? Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah. I had actually put him in a preschool out of my neighborhood, because, again, the disparity of curriculum based on the color of your skin. Okay. So by this time, you know, age 26, I'm pretty savvy on how to navigate my world.
Right.
And so he's out of his current neighborhood in a different neighborhood. And so he came home and asked me whether he was Black.
Yeah.
And again, I'm shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
That conversation came from a 5-year-old, whatever that conversation was.
Yeah.
That dialogue came from children. I'm like, yes, you are Black and you're beautiful.
Yeah.
And I left it there, you know.
Yeah.
But I was angry because what do 5-year-olds know? This child evidently didn't know he was Black. I mean, what's Black? He knew he was a boy. He knew he was human.
Right.
You know.
Right.
He knew his colors, so he knew he
Sure.
didn't have the same colors of the children. But
Sure.
what it was a child, a 5-year-old child, that made him feel like his color, something was wrong with it.
Yes. Yes.
No.
Yes. I can tell you, my kids had never come home when they were younger and asked me, you know, if they were white.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had that conversation with them, ever. You know, I mean, and we laugh, but it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
And I have never had that conversation. I don't have any memory of asking my mom, how come I'm white? Or am I white? Or anything about it. Never.
What is your memory of seeing a dark-skinned person, a person not white? Do you have a memory of a reaction and a question?
I do have memories of that. So I grew up in Denver, and we lived in a not so nice area of Denver, and kind of Arvada, and it was lower income because, you know, my mom was a single mom. She didn't really have much. So the housing that we lived in was Section 8 housing at the time, though I didn't know that that's what that was. I do now, you know, but I didn't know then. But I just knew I had a lot of friends in that area where we lived that were of different colors and didn't look like me, but I didn't particularly care that they didn't look like me. I just liked them because they were my friend, you know. And when we were at daycare, we had a lot of, again, multicultural, diverse group at daycare. And I remember, well, several different daycares. One in particular, I was maybe just 5 years old. And I wasn't at that daycare center for very long, but my friend, Maxwell, cute little boy. I had a big crush on him, and he was Black, but I didn't know it. But I knew his skin was a different color. I knew his color, right? But I didn't know, like you just said, there was no meaning attached to it. He just was darker than me, but we really liked each other, and we were good friends, and we hung out all the time. Like anywhere we went, we were always together. And I can remember one time we were playing on the playground. I think we were doing the monkey bars or something. And I was standing watching him, and then he did his trick and he came running over to me, and I had Mickey Mouse sunglasses on, and it was kind of overcast outside, and he bumped into me. We crashed, you know, he ran into me, didn't mean to. And the sunglasses cut above my eyebrow, and so, you know, you get a cut on your head and it bleeds a lot. So had a lot of blood, and I remember having to go get stitches and all of that. But that's one of my earliest memories. That's nothing against Maxwell, but that's one of my earliest memories of an early friendship, budding friendship with, you know, someone who didn't look like me. And then when we went to a new daycare center, I missed Maxwell, of course, but, you know, made friends with all sorts of other kids too. And my sister and I grew up around a diverse group of kids. So it never meant anything negative to us. And I don't have any, I just always really loved my friends. I remember in elementary school, I had several friends that were Black, and we used to always play with each other's hair. They loved, I had long blonde hair, white blonde hair, and they would braid my hair and I would braid their hair, and I was always telling them, I really want your hair, and they would say, I want your hair too, you know. I mean, and we were just kids. We loved to like hold hands and sit with each other, and just we would rub each other's back, like do little scratches on each other's back, you know, and play with hair. And we just were kids, and we just loved each other.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew. So for me, in that regard, I've never had an instance where any of that was, you know, had a bad imprint for me. But as I got older, just an awareness that other people hold differences, you know, and seeing some of those differences. And then once my mom married my dad, we moved to a different neighborhood and stuff, and it was more predominantly white. We still had a few people, and we had several Hispanic families on our block, and a Black family, and I was really good friends with their son Michael and his sisters. We would call them aunties. Just loved it, you know. It was like they raised us, the whole neighborhood, all of the parents and the older siblings raised all of us kids. So none of us could get away with anything, you know. But there was never, even among us, there was never a time where any of us ever said anything disparaging. We would have arguments, you know, we'd play games and get into fights, but there was never any disparaging word based on those things, or, you know, anything like that, until I would say I didn't really start hearing that stuff until probably later in junior high or early high school. And of course, anytime I heard it, I was the one who was in somebody's face, you know, chewing them out basically and telling them to knock it off, you know.
Yeah, you know, I had a pretty similar childhood. My block was predominantly Black. School, elementary school. It's been such a long time, but yeah, I think it was predominantly Black. Junior high school, no, it was definitely more integrated with culturally and racially integrated. And junior high school and high school, really no racial problems. Okay, but as my mind's eye look back, while we didn't have any racial problems, we always seemed to separate. You know what I mean?
It was kind of those unspoken social kind of constructs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know, we were all in class together.
Right.
Okay. But when it came time for recess and lunch and whoop, you know, we all went to our separate corners.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know, really, because we're kids. What do we know? We're not calling each other names. I mean, that wasn't my experience in junior high and high school.
Yeah.
But again, I think that our world outside of us influenced us. You know, I definitely know the neighborhoods in which the white children came from. They were predominantly white, Italian neighborhoods,
right,
for the most part. You know, I'm not there. I don't know what the conversations are.
right.
You know, but again, we know the world in which we live.
Right.
Again, yeah, it was late 60s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so we know the social
Mm-hmm.
status at that time in terms of black and white conditions, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So children weren't fighting amongst themselves, but they were definitely still separating themselves, you
Yeah.
know.
Did you see or hear your parents talk about anything that was going on during that time with all of the, civil rights movement or anything like that?
I don't really, I don't remember conversations other than the news reporting, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and my mom did bring my sister and I here to DC during the first March on Washington.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
Wow.
As an adult, you know, I we came as tourists.
Yeah.
We came as tourists. You
Yeah.
know, I remember I remember what that looked like.
Yeah.
You know, it was tents and mud, and people was sitting on and sleeping in on the mall. I remember that. You
Yeah.
know, but we weren't. We were tourists. You know,
Interesting.
yeah, that was
Okay,
kind
so
of
you guys weren't, she didn't take you there to,
to be part of the cause.
right? No.
No,
Oh.
we were tourists.
You think that was that you were tourists or
we
like
we
air
were
quotes?
tourists. Well, when
Oh,
I say we were tourists, we came, we
yeah.
saw that scene.
Yes.
Okay, I have a picture of my mother and I and my sister at
Right.
the Lincoln. The picture of Lincoln was at the
Yes.
Lincoln
Memorial.
Memorial.
Yes.
She had on a nice fancy hat, fancy
Nice.
pants. I had.
Oh,
We were tourists. In my,
gotcha.
me viewing it as an adult. Okay,
Yeah.
that's tourism.
Right. But mom, you think mom wanted you there to kind of give you
oh,
guys an experience?
oh yeah, oh yeah. That was the
Yeah.
purpose. That was the purpose. But
Wow.
she wasn't down in the
Sure.
trenches.
Sure.
You know,
She didn't, so you didn't have a conversation where she said, look, we're going to Washington and we're going to be part of this march.
no. She may have had that conversation with her friends, but no, she
She
didn't
just
have that
wanted you
conversation with
guys,
her children.
yep,
Right.
she wanted
We
you in that
witnessed.
environment.
Yeah,
Wow.
we witnessed, and
Yeah.
that was it. You know, and
Interesting.
so my kinship
Mm-hmm.
to that time period that's really, I'm proud of being able to
Yeah.
say I saw that,
Right.
but my understanding of that comes through my research and other sources, that teaches me what that was
Okay.
about, you
So
know.
almost like you were close. So you were in the proximity of it, but you don't, in that regard, you haven't attached to being a participant of it because you weren't really in it. You were just
Right, right. I was not a participant of it.
interesting.
I wasn't old enough to be a participant,
Mhm.
so that would have been incumbent of my mom to be a participant, and she was not. Um,
Interesting. I'd be
yeah, and
curious to
I
know
think
why. Yeah.
I think I think maybe I could understand first and foremost at that time. She's a single mom.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So
Right.
she's raising, right? She's raising my sister and I.
Yeah.
Who's got time for that? You know what I'm saying?
For it, and she can't be part of that
She
scene,
can't
but
be part of that. She's raising two daughters.
yes, she doesn't want you guys getting hurt either, but
Okay.
she didn't want you to miss out on the history of it. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. You
Interesting.
know.
Yeah.
And you had asked a question earlier about other another experience I may have had in terms
Mhm.
of having to teach uh,
Mhm.
my children behavior.
Yeah.
And the only time that I did, and my boys at this time, they were in high school here in Virginia.
Mhm.
And we lived in a nice, quiet neighborhood, a townhome corner plot. And it was a summer day, and my boys was on the corner talking amongst themselves, and it started to get dark. And so I came out on the porch, and I told the boys, I said, I need y'all to come up on the porch.
Yeah.
And one of my sons said, "Ma, we're right here."
Mm. Yeah.
My response was, "I clearly see where you are."
But I also see where you're not.
Right. I said, "I need you to
Yeah.
get up on the porch."
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
said, "You are three Black boys standing on a corner.
Right.
Two of your friends come up,
Yeah.
y'all are talking about basketball. But to
Right.
the cops, you're a
Right.
crowd.
You're a crowd and you're
You're a
acting
crowd.
up good and you're suspicious.
Okay.
Right.
Get up on the porch." And
Wow.
my sons had no clue.
Yeah. How old
None.
were they? Do you remember?
They're in high school.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But in terms of I've never taught them anything about racial divide, attention, or
Sure.
codes, or I mean, again, I believe, I mean, they lived a good childhood,
Right.
same as I,
Right.
so I didn't have to teach them what is being taught to young men today. I didn't have to do
Right.
that.
Right.
But it still hurt for
Yeah.
me to say just that,
To even find
and
out.
as they came up on the porch, I said, "I know you don't understand." I said, "You will," you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and
What was their
life.
reaction? Did they think that you were maybe painting a, like, come on, mom?
Yeah, I think they thought I was crazy.
Yeah. Right?
I think they thought I
Right.
was crazy. Like, what, Mom,
Paranoid.
we're right here. That was the reaction.
Yeah.
Mom, we're right here.
Right.
So they didn't see from my mind's eye. They didn't see. They saw, I don't know what they were thinking, but
Yeah.
we weren't definitely not on the same page. They had no clue,
Right.
that they could possibly be in danger
Right.
if two children came up,
Right.
five Black boys standing on the corner.
Right. Well,
Okay. If a
and
cop
even, yeah,
question, they're still going to have the same reaction as they had with me. What's the problem?
yes, even three, even one, I mean, the, here's what I do know, that within our collective white view of the world is there exists this idea that there lives within Black skin, there lives more criminality, more distrust, more nefarious, kind of suspicious, what are you up to? Right?
And where does that come from? Where does that come
Well, I'll tell you what I've been able to surmise from conversations with other people, but also my own unlearning and uh, learning, and education, but observations too from growing up is these handed down inherited beliefs, like you said, where mothers pass on this or fathers pass on this, just families in general, how they speak, how they act, how they infer, implicit biases, explicit biases, and conversations, and what we read, articles, about all of that, things on TV. We get the messaging everywhere that for white individuals and white women, add that layer to it too, that, there's the imagery that being a white woman sexualizes me in a way that, attracts, potentially Black males that would want to do me harm.
Mm. That's
Irrational. It's irrational.
absolutely is irrational. Through history,
Yeah.
the white race has been the aggressor.
Thank you.
They've been the aggressor.
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Hell,
Yeah.
come on.
But in school, our history books were all about the dialogue from the white supreme perspective.
Yeah.
I got more history training, education, if you will, about what the civil right or Civil War actually was about, not states' rights. We learned it was because of slavery, and it was because this notion of the abolitionist movement, and how it almost tore and separated the country, and how the southern states wanted to secede and all of that. But we learned more than kids are learning now. Kids are learning that it was all about states' rights. But a lot of even our history was very whitewashed. Even what we learned about Columbus, it was this kind of, he was just, he was sent on a mission by, the I don't know, the king and queen, in Italy, and go sail and discover America like it was this grand adventure.
Yeah.
And
I remember, I had to be in elementary school when we were learning about Columbus and all the other men who explored the ocean blue.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I don't know what the method of teaching is today, but surely during my time it was all rote. So we had to remember the dates and what they discovered and da. So
right.
as I'm being taught this information and reading these history books,
right.
Instinctively I said to myself, I'm like, where were we?
Exactly.
And I literally asked the question, where were we when they were doing all of that? I don't remember the answer. If there was a mentioning in the books, it was not significant enough for me to remember. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so my learning of my history was independent of the school teaching. Okay.
Yes.
And it's sad, really, that our educational system is teaching lies.
100%.
Teaching lies and reinforcing separate. What was it? We're not, they was separate but equal. But we, in a lot of cases, the teaching is not even that we're equal.
Right. Well, not only that, but the version is that white men were the conquerors and saviors, and they were just adventurous, and they were looking for new frontiers, and you could hear the amazing songs and music in the background, and the depiction then for your community, for your ancestry, is that you guys were waiting in your country. You were walking around with very little clothing, right? Naked, throwing spears in the jungle.
And again,
you need to be civilized.
I say to people who just pause, pause, sit and think about it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We built America.
You did.
Black people built America.
Yeah.
We, those people that, if that is the picture,
Yes.
that blacks were just sitting around, walking around naked, nothing to do, nothing in their head, no skills, no this, no that.
Right.
Well,
Right.
how did we build America? We built the White House.
But you know, if we have the narrative that it took the white man, the white race, to civilize these heathenistic, right? You know where I'm going, sister.
Yeah, I do.
These heathenistic, remote
Mhm.
races, remote cultures, you know, that, and we're talking about the Black community, we're talking about indigenous people, we're talking
Yes.
about minorities as well,
Yes.
Latinos, all of that, other races, other nationalities. We're talking about all of it.
Yes.
Even, you know, the Asiatic groups as well. And so it took white,
Mhm.
you know, people to civilize and bring God, you know, and civility and clothing and
Yeah,
all of this, you know, modern
that's so
technology.
amazing. That's so amazing because when I think about that, okay,
Yeah.
because I sit with it too, okay,
Yes. Yes.
and let's talk about God, okay.
Right. Let's do.
Is there a separate God? Is there a God for white people and another God for black people and another God for Hispanic people? And you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And okay, so that's a question. And if the white man brought all of this to the table, how'd you get it? How did you get it? And why didn't every human being have it? Why? What? Come on now. Okay.
Well, a lot of it we stole intellectual property and inventions and
Yes.
otherwise from other
Yes.
cultures, 100%.
Yes. Yes. I'm
And
glad.
that's, yeah, and that's the crux, I think, Miss LaRue, of why people are so afraid to talk about it, because we, in our whiteness, we know that we have stolen, we have taken, we have appropriated, we have ripped off, we have benefited and climbed over and on the backs of and on and on and on
Yes.
your community, you know, indigenous people, minorities, and other and Asiatic communities as well. The entirety of the globe. We know this. We know that we have done that.
Right.
And the terror then is in the admission of it, the humbling ourselves before it, and then the fear is, what are you going to do about it against us?
Well, okay. Okay.
Right?
Okay. So, wow. And I think I said this to you in one of our private conversations. Come on.
Yeah.
Look at the history of atrocities,
Right.
okay, that's been inflicted upon people.
Yes.
What are we going to do about it? What are we trying to do about it? What are we talking about it? We want, of course, it to stop. Just stop.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Seriously, just stop.
Amen.
You know, stop the ignorance.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, when I look at the earth, which the earth is meant for all humans to exist, the earth supplies resources enough for all humans to have, but we already know what the conditions are around the world. You know, politics and greed and war
Yes.
and control,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
those are the wheels that turn.
Yes.
And those are the same wheels that creates class systems.
Yes.
and you know, and so I can't control the top, okay? Voting controls the top, and sort of, you know, that's, you leave that for a whole nother time. But right here, Raelin, where you and I are,
Yeah.
you know, people
Yeah.
need to come to this table,
Yeah.
you know, and stop the madness. I mean, hell, you're not gonna lose anything. You're gonna keep everything you got.
Right.
You know what I
And
mean?
plenty
You're
to
gonna keep
go
everything you
around.
got.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
gonna continue my life, my goals, my
Yeah.
dreams,
Yeah.
taking nothing off your table.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. But I know you know the overarching, and it's from the minority in power, right? The white male patriarchal mentality, right? That disseminates all of this,
Yeah.
is their fear that they're upset out of power and imbalance occurs. So what do? They disseminate the information down and give the messaging that these people are taking away your jobs. They're infiltrating your neighborhoods. They're bringing up crime rates. They're doing all of this stuff. And so if those in power can give the message that these groups are here to harm, they're criminals, they're not humans, they're subhuman, they come from shithole countries, right? And all of that, then that is the threat. And that is what registers for people on that human safety and security base need level to survive. And that's where a lot of people are. And in that space against the pandemic too.
Well, it's sad. I'm serious. It's
It
very
isn't
sad.
evil. It's
Okay, first and
evil.
foremost, um, I'm blessed because I've never been a puppet. You
Yeah,
know,
right,
you just can't. You
right,
know, you can tell me a thing, okay, but I'm gonna think about it.
right.
Okay, and the first thing that comes to me is, does that make sense? When I struggled with religion,
Right,
okay, does that make sense?
right.
Okay, and I remember clearly praying for a miracle. Okay, all these fantastic stories in the Bible. I'm like, I remember saying to myself, well, heck, you know,
Yeah,
if that happened, and if I saw that, surely I would believe.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Um, and so again, I'm gonna put religion aside
Mm-hmm,
and come back to the human side
mm-hmm,
of us.
mm-hmm,
Okay, um, me and other people, whoever you are.
mm-hmm.
Okay, you first come to me right here in my heart. You know, I'm not really, you know, I will filter out judgment,
Yeah,
okay, because
yeah.
it's there, right?
Right, right,
All those teachings that was ingrained or whatever, you
right,
know, it's there. So I'm going to filter out the noise, and I'm
right,
going to accept you uh, as you present yourself to me,
right,
you know. And so you're in or you're out is a personal exchange to me, you
right.
know, having nothing to do with those people. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Now I'm not perfect by a long shot. You know, I've I've had I've made derogatory statements about people.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, people of different races, colors, class,
Right,
same race. I'm just like the next person.
right.
Okay. Um, I don't believe I believe that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
I think that's the difference. That
mm-hmm.
I might have maybe a Spanish chick pissed me off,
Sure,
you know, and
sure.
I might have said some crap that we hear,
Right,
you know, some slur that we hear. do I believe that about all Spanish people? I really don't.
Right.
It was about her.
Right.
You know, in the moment. You
Right.
know, and I think that that's the difference, you know, that you know, there's people who just believe that Black men
Yeah.
are dangerous.
Right.
Really?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Black men have families.
Right.
They have children. They have grandchildren.
Right.
They live the same lives that our counterparts live.
Amen.
They love the same way.
Amen.
How have I, what?
Amen. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time, you guys. This is an amazing conversation, and we're going to continue this, Miss Lura, because we haven't even gotten started in all of this. But it is our hope that we, you know, could bring some more voices to the table, of course.
Yes.
Definitely. But I really want to thank you, and am deeply honored that you, you know, entrusted me in this space. This space is open for you, and for any of your peers that would wish to join us. It's a sacred space.
It is. It is.
And I hold it deeply, and I just really want to thank you for honoring us today with your wisdom and your voice, and just also being a part of my life. I'm pretty lucky.
That's the best part.
Yes, I'm pretty lucky, you guys. I'm seriously really lucky to know you and to be counted among your special ones in your life. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well, Raelin. I really appreciate you as well.
Oh, I love you. Do you have maybe a poem that you could share with us?
No.
Oh, did I put you on the spot?
Yes, you did.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. I was
Perhaps next time I have one ready, but
Okay.
nothing here.
I should have. I thought about it earlier, and I was like, well, maybe she has one that she's got, you know, pretty quick. Or is there a quote that you absolutely love?
Well,
That
you know, shoot, I'm always picking up quotes.
Yeah, me too.
Really, random quotes from random people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last 24 hours, I had a few of them I really should have written down. But each time I hear a quote, I'll say, "Oh, I don't remember that."
Right.
Not really. I'm gonna quote my mom.
Okay.
Okay, because it seems to be a theme. You know, she told me once, good people wind up on park benches. And at the time,
people wind up on park benches.
Right. And so, at the time she told me this, it was really about my heart. Okay, I was giving a lot and feeling used and abused.
Interesting.
And so she said, "Good people wind up on park benches."
Oh.
Yeah, right. And so, I had to work that. I had to work with that through my years.
Yeah.
I had to balance that. You know, it's like, really, man? Like, what am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to act?
Yeah.
You know. So I struggled because I didn't want to be hard and ungiving and.
Yeah.
But I wanted to survive.
Right.
And I surely didn't want to wind up on a park bench.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
So today, I sit on park benches and I smile.
Wow.
I'm so good people, and I'm sitting on a very good park bench.
Yes, you
Feeling
are.
very comfortable with myself.
And the view looks pretty damn good, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So I want to share something with all of you. This is something that my dear sister shares with me constantly, is that and here I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get you guys, if you've known me for 5 minutes, you know I'm a big snappy. But Miss LaRue says to me all the time, I don't want you hurting on this journey.
That's right.
Find a way to manage what you are feeling. She says, it's so overwhelming. Even I have to take small bites and stay focused on purpose and do something fun. Yes. Thank you, my friend. We're going to leave you guys with that. We are responsible for what we write upon the mind of our children.
Yes.
And good people wind up on park benches.
Oh, you captured all of it.
I wrote it down, my friend. You were sprinkling wisdom throughout. I wrote it down. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I really love you and appreciate you. And
I love you as well, Raelin. I really do.
We'll do this again, my friend. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining us on Live Out Loud. You can catch Miss LaRue on Facebook. You can find her on her Facebook page, Rue Brodus. I will drop that in the comments for the podcast, so you can find her on Facebook and reach out. I'm going to tell you though, she's going to take you under her wing and she's going to put you through your paces. But it's always with love, and it's always with greater understanding and depth of spiritual insight, truly. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, babe.
Bye-bye.